lot of people just post like highlights of their gameplay. Nobody watches that.
This is Nutty. He's a full-time live streamer and he makes a great living doing it.
The revenue I get from subscriptions and ad revenue is like a pretty small percentage of that.
Wait, what? What are the ways that you monetize?
I haven't put that much effort into, but it makes the majority of my income.
Now he's killing it on Twitch, but what about YouTube? Nutty has blown his channel up by doing one simple thing.
That's the foundation for everything, and it's worked for over a decade.
In this video, the live stream expert covers everything you should know if you plan to stream in 2025. We have to talk about multi-streaming.
I think people overcomplicate it a lot.
What advice would you give for somebody that is afraid to share their face? Dude, your studio is insane.
The strategy that people have been using for years, and it still continues to work, is like you just...
So, Nutty, how long have you been a creator?
Technically speaking, almost 11 years, but I almost don't count like the first 5 or 6 years of doing it because I mostly did it socially like most people do when they start. But I really started to take YouTube and content creation seriously maybe around 2020, 2021. So maybe like 4 years ago.
When you started, were you just trying out different niches or did you already know that you wanted to be into live streaming at some point?
I started off as a speedrunner. So I used to speedrun Super Metroid, really old game from like the 90s. I love that game. It's like my favorite game of all time. And the only real way that I could connect with people that are into that interest was from live streaming. So everyone that was into the game and was speedrunning the game, they just happened to be live streaming. So I sort of just fell into it, but I didn't really have an ambition to like be a content creator. It just turned out that way because you had to do it if you wanted to be in that community.
So at some point, was it necessary for you to learn the things that you teach?
Yeah, it sort of just came naturally. Like I loved speedrunning, but I never wanted to be like the best speedrunner or anything. I was always more into the actual production of my streams. One of the things I noticed about the speedrunning community is like they care more about the game than like how their stream looks. So when other speedrunners would come into my stream, they'd always be impressed with like how my layout looks or like just some creative aspect of my stream, like different widgets I have. And so they'd always ask me questions about it. I just love tinkering with my stream. Like I'd have like a new layout every 2 months just because I like playing around with things. And at some point I had learned so much about the technical side of streaming that I just like started to forget things. And that's how I fell into making YouTube videos. Even if nobody watched it, they'd be useful for me like a year from now. I'd start to forget things and a year from now, I'm going to be able to watch this video and learn from myself from a year ago how I did something.
Dude, I totally get it. I feel the same way when it comes to YouTube advice. You can't remember everything. So it's just like you review it, you know, it's nice. Do you think that there was a very specific video that catapulted you into the success that you have, or was it more of like a slow build?
No, it was very rapid. I don't know if it's a specific video. When COVID started, everybody was stuck at home. They're like, okay, what do I do now with my time? And everyone just got into live streaming. They're just looking up tutorials on like, oh, how do I do certain things? And then they stumble across my videos. But if there was like a particular video, there's a tool that I used to use called Voice Meter. It's like a tool for how to like separate your audio, desktop audio, your gameplay, sound effects and everything. And the program is just it's so difficult to use and nobody knows how to use it. And there was a bunch of tutorials, but I just didn't feel that anyone had like a really solid start to finish for someone who has no idea what they're doing. How do they use this complicated program? And so it was like this big task that I had for myself, like, okay, how do I distill this very complicated, scary looking program into something that actually feels achievable for someone? And that video, I think to date, is still my most viewed video. It's like over 1 million views.
On the topic of tools, is there any equipment or software that you would highly recommend to a streamer that they might not know about?
I think most streamers can get away with like the basics for equipment. You don't really need a lot for equipment. If you have like a semi-decent microphone, doesn't need to be the best, you're good. If you have a semi-decent camera, you're good. And you can pretty much make anything. For software, there's a tool that I push a lot. It's called StreamerBot. And it's basically, it's hard to distill this program into like one thing, but it's a bot that pretty much does everything for your stream. You can automate your entire stream with it. You can play like sound effects. You type a message in Twitch chat or YouTube chat, and then it just spits out a response. You can have your mods type in a command, and then it will change scenes in OBS for you. Or they could type in a command and then pause your music for you. Or whenever ads start running on Twitch, you can make it like play a sound effect. Like you can literally do anything that you can think of.
Thanks to you, I know about it now. When I first got it, I was like, well, I want the viewers to be able to change a scene, and I set up a camera where my cats sit in my studio, so if they type !cats, it switches to my cat cam. And so I had to figure out how to do that, and of course I went and I found you, and yeah, man, StreamerBot, it's awesome. Of course, you can monetize the live stream itself through ads and whatnot, but like, what are the ways that you monetize?
I have like a ton of different revenue streams, and the revenue I get from subscriptions and ad revenue is like a pretty small percentage of that. Most of my income actually comes from Patreon. So a lot of what I do for the YouTube channel is like I talk about different tools for streamers, and I actually make my own tools that people can get access to through Patreon. And to be perfectly honest with you, like I haven't put that much effort into Patreon, but it makes the majority of my income. And there's also some tools that I release for free for people, but then they have the option to pay for it if they want. And then there's sponsors as well.
Say somebody wants to be a new streamer, what platform would you recommend they use?
I think people overcomplicate it a lot. I think the strategy that people have been using for years, and I don't know why people try to think of like a more novel solution, is like you just make YouTube videos and then you push people to your Twitch channel. People try to think like, oh, what about Kick, or what about streaming on TikTok or whatever? Like people have made YouTube plus Twitch work for so long, and it still continues to work. People think Twitch is a bad platform to stream on, and I can kind of see where they're coming from because the discoverability is like non-existent there. But that's why you make YouTube videos. It's the model that's worked for me, and I've seen it work for a lot of people, and I just don't really overcomplicate it.
We have to talk about multi-streaming because I know you stream to Twitch and YouTube, and you incorporate the vertical side. Have you seen like any benefits? Is it working? Is it growing anything?
I think the benefits of it are a little bit overstated. I think what's nice about multi-streaming is it just allows you to just be present on different platforms. But I think what most people will find is even if they multi-stream to a lot of different platforms, there's probably going to just be one that is very clearly like your main platform and the one that you should be focusing on. So even though I do multi-stream on YouTube and Twitch, it's very obvious that it's my Twitch audience that is like by far the most important. But it just lets people who are already on my YouTube channel just know that I am there and I am streaming, so that like I don't, they don't forget about me or something.
It makes sense. I mean, that's how we set up the interview, because I saw that you were live and I just hopped in and it just worked out that way.
Hey, John Scott, you sent me an email. When did you send me the email?
Do you ever feel like you're connecting to viewers less because they might not understand the context in another chat, like on a different platform, because they're not there? I mean, I know you have a little scroll bar at the bottom, but it can only hold so many messages.
Yeah, I feel that more so with vertical streaming, because with vertical streaming, you need to like make a different layout that's very specific. Like I have like this sub printer, so every time someone subs, like it prints out like a little receipt, and the sub printer is like off to the side. But then when you're watching my vertical stream, you don't see the sub printer. So just like little things like that, they're just missing certain context that I would have to explain specifically for them. And I tend to remind people a lot like, hey, if you want the full experience, you should just come over to the Twitch stream. And a lot of people do come over when I make that call to action.
I have checked out some of your vertical streams. The first one I saw, you were doing a Rubik's Cube. And you had switched up the cameras and it had focused on your hands, but it was at the top. And I'm like, well, that's where like the chat isn't in the way, no matter what platform you're on. That probably would be the best spot for the focus.
Yeah.
So then I redid all of my templates to put the point of focus, which was my screen, like Photoshop and whatever, like in that spot, the same spot that you did. So even just watching you is super helpful when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, I actually made a template that my viewers can download that shows you in your vertical live stream like which parts of the stream are going to be covered by like buttons or the chat, so people they can prepare their vertical stream beforehand. So yeah, I did think about that a lot.
Dude, I did the same thing. That's hilarious. Yeah. It's just a PNG that I lay over everything on OBS to make sure it's good to go.
Yeah.
It's good thinking, man. It's good thinking. On vertical streaming, like, do you think that this might be a passing fad, or do you think it's gonna like grow into something bigger?
I don't know about passing fad, but I think It's going to be much the same like regular YouTube videos versus shorts. There's a very specific way you need to make shorts. Like you can't make them the same way that you make a regular video. I think for vertical streams, it's going to be sort of similar. Like the types of content that work for vertical streaming is going to be very different than the types of content that work for regular horizontal streaming. TikTok, unfortunately, is a good example of this because, you know, the NPC streamers on TikTok, like that cannot exist on like a regular streaming platform, but it exists and is very successful on TikTok. I don't really like those streams, but like it just shows like different types of content just do differently on vertical compared to like normal streams.
TikTok also does those like competitions where they're like trying to get as many galaxies or roses or whatever. That's a really good point, that it will just work differently, like shorts work differently than long form. Some popular advice is to just focus on two things, and your two things are obviously like live streaming on Twitch and then making long form YouTube videos. Do you think it's beneficial for people to do live streams and short form clips instead, since maybe they're not offering the same type of value as you? Have you seen that work for streamers?
It's definitely worked for some people. I've seen a lot of people succeed in shorts, but I've also seen a lot of people fail in shorts because they're kind of just uploading for the sake of uploading. Shorts require a very specific format, and I think a lot of people just post like highlights of their gameplay, which maybe once in a while they'll get like one video that does really, really well, and they'll think that's like, oh, maybe like they've hit something, but then like the next day, their next short, nobody watches that. You've got to be doing YouTube videos. Like that's the foundation for everything. And it's worked for like over a decade. I don't know why people like insist that short form is like the way when 10 to 15 minutes has worked for so long already.
That's good to know, man. Seriously. What is one thing that a new streamer can do to set themselves apart from the rest of the pack?
The number one thing a new streamer can do to set themselves apart is being a good storyteller. Being a good storyteller will take you so far in content creation because that is like literally that's the aim of the game. You're not going to learn this just through live streaming. You will learn this so much more effectively by making YouTube videos because it forces you to think about story structure, beginning, middle, and end, and how do you string all of that together. So if you're not making YouTube videos, I think that's something that you should consider doing, even if it means cutting back in your streaming hours.
What is one thing every streamer should be focusing on?
I think the one thing that every streamer should be focusing on is before you even make content, you need to know who you're making the content for. You should have an idea of the person who's going to be watching the video because that's going to give you a lot of direction for the way that you actually structure your videos or structure your streams or YouTube shorts or whatever it is that you want to make.
So what's the worst trap you see new streamers fall into?
The worst trap I see new streamers fall into is they do things because somebody that they perceive to be more successful told them that that's the right thing to do. For example, I'm going to make TikTok videos because X person on YouTube said that's a great way to grow your stream. And so they'll do it so they can check off a box, but they don't really think about what they're creating. Same thing for making YouTube videos. They'll make a YouTube video and it might be like a highlight reel of my stream. But like, who's going to watch a highlight reel of your stream? Nobody's going to want to click on something like that.
What has been the most difficult thing that you've had to overcome as a live streamer?
I don't know if it really comes across, but I'm actually like incredibly shy in person and not the kind of person that you would ever see in front of a camera. Like when I first started streaming, I didn't have a camera and I refused to put one on because I didn't feel comfortable in front of the camera. But I sort of forced myself into being more confident. And that was like an intentional decision. That wasn't just something that just came about. Like I actually was like, okay, I need to get better at this because I want my content to be more fun. And it's going to be more fun if there's an actual face in front of people. All the fears that I had about it of like making a fool of myself, it didn't even take that long. After like a couple of weeks, it became something that, okay, now I actually want to be on camera all the time. And it just made things more fun. I noticed immediately that people were more engaged with the stream, and I just continued to do it. And over time, I just got better and better at it. I actually have archives of my streams for the past like 10 years, and you can see my progression of being like, soft spoken, and then now to this where I have like a bajillion cameras pointing at me and like lights everywhere, and I'm loving it now.
what advice would you give for somebody that is afraid to share their face or afraid to speak?
Something I would recommend is if you're the type of person that games with your camera just shrunk down in the corner, that feels comfortable. But what you should probably do is make a scene in OBS where your camera is full screen, nothing else, just your camera, and just force yourself to use it for like 20 minutes a stream. And it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but you just have to force yourself to do it.
You were live streaming or something a few days ago, and you did this shot of your studio, and I thought that what I had was cool, but yeah, what I have is nothing. Your studio is insane. Is there a way that you could like show people that I could use as B-roll?
I have prepared something. Let
Ooh.
me share my screen. This is a tracking camera, so like follows me around. So that's
dude, this
yeah, this is the YouTube desk. So I have the teleprompter there. And then this is the desk I stream from. Yeah.
That is insane, dude. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And it's so clean.
The tracking is the coolest part because I can walk around and people can see, it tracks me when I walk around the room. But yeah.
Is that an Insta360 that's moving
No,
around?
it's from ObsBot.
ObsBot. Okay.
Yeah, so it's actually like wirelessly. It's just like mounted on that side of the room, and it feeds wirelessly into my PCs. And then I have a Stream Deck on that desk, and I could set preset positions. So I have one preset position here that points it to the YouTube desk. So if I
that's dope.
desk, and then this is the streaming desk, and then that's like the wide view.
Dude, that's nuts. Yeah, this is insane, man. Yeah. It's so crazy. Hey, so this was pretty new for me, this whole interview style thing, but I'd love to do it more. I'd love to reach out to more creators and even creators that you suggest, but I only want to do it if I know that you're getting something from it. So if you could, just let me know in the comments. A simple yes or no is totally fine, and that way we can decide together. Until then, here is another interview that Dan did with a creator that, well, he blew up in a pretty unexpected way. Let's just say that. Let me hit this end recording thing, and then we'll just, we'll sit here in awkward silence.